Second-hand watches. Singapore has many shops selling second-hand watches. Don't get there too early. Singapore is a late riser. This shop was closed. A lot of shops in Singapore don't open till 10 or 11 a.m. in the morning, but they stay open longer in the evening. This is to suit Singapore's hot climate. So just be prepared to hit the pavement a little bit later, and then you can work until night, snapping up bargains. Is there bargains? Bargains are few and far between, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on. The shops that sell second-hand watches in Singapore are pawn shops and second-hand watch dealers. Buy and sell. It seems like a familiar tag. One thing I love about Singapore is the huge variety of pieces on display. Have a look at this window here. Absolutely jam-packed with every type of watch you could possibly want. Omega, Rolex, Patek Philippe. The list is endless. The brands that are very popular in Asia are Omega, Rolex, Cartier, Patek, and some of the other expensive brand names. Singapore is a mecca to look at these watches. On display here, thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of watches. All on display, boxed, with papers often in really nice condition. A lot of really rare pieces that you won't see in any other second-hand store. This is second-hand selling at its finest. Unfortunately, the prices leave a lot to be desired. Unless you really know what you're doing, you'll be done like a dinner. A lot of the pieces on display here really aren't that cheap. It's always a good idea when you're traveling to use chrono24.com as a pricing guide. You don't want to come here in hot Asia, get rushed on a purchase, and then discover you've paid way over the odds. Singapore is a very unforgiving environment. It rewards people with knowledge and money, and it penalizes the ignorant and the foolhardy. A lot of beautiful watches on display here in the center of Singapore. This isn't necessarily a high-end shopping center. It's sort of a tier or two down, but the watches on display can only be called first class. First class. Amazing pieces on display in amazing Singapore. What wonderful treasures lie here. Singapore has a huge appetite for pieces, and walking around these shops here can make one drool. One needs to look at the prices to suddenly get a bit of a price check and realize there ain't no bargains in Singapore. These are sharp sellers waiting for retail schmucks to walk right in. Thankfully, the internet has removed that disastrous approach. Always check out the prices before you start negotiating with these people. These are skilled hagglers. Always remember, after you leave the shop, to count how many fingers are attached to your hand. Singapore itself has a huge reputation as being a bargain hub. I'm very sorry to report that in recent years, this really isn't the case. The watches are on display, amazing pieces on display, every conceivable model known to man you can see in these windows. However, you've got to know your homework, you've got to know your prices, you've got to know what to comfortably play. You will get done like a dinner if you don't have that knowledge. A lot of fantastic pieces here are quite old. Nothing wrong with that, but you've got to factor that in when the brand is Cartier and these are a type of fashion watch. Singapore has an unparalleled quest and thirst for luxury watches. The second-hand stores selling these pieces here can only survive if they have customers who want to buy. In no other part of the world will watches be so readily displayed? Well, that's not quite true. Hong Kong is another country which has a similar sales approach. Bangkok, to a lesser degree, also has magnificent watches for sale on many lower tier shopping centres. However, Singapore's range offers nice, honest pieces at high prices. Unfortunately, with the way the currencies have been fluctuating, I'm not sure whether you will get real bargains in Singapore unless you can haggle like a bitch. You really need to haggle like a bitch to get that super deal. The thing to remember is you've got to have good negotiating skills to get these things happening. There ain't no bargains in Singapore. I wasn't ready to buy any. In fact, I was looking for bargains, and that's one thing that is fairly short in supply in Singapore is the bargain. The bargain. Doesn't seem to be that many. And it's fairly sad because Singapore used to be such a hub of bargains. As sales taxes around the world have been replaced by goods and services, or VAT as you English people refer to it, the actual tax on watches has been reduced. This has meant the transparency from one country to another has made these things virtual commodities. And I'm afraid to tell you, there ain't no bargains in Singapore. What is fantastic, however, is the variety and just the sheer amount of stock on display. Can you buy a piece? Well, if you go in with the right mindset, you possibly can. But you have to have done your homework, know how to negotiate with Asians, which is not one of the easiest tasks in life, and you have to haggle like a bitch. Haggle hard, haggle strong. That's the only way you will get a bargain piece. Forget buying Rolex sports watches cheap in Singapore. That ain't gonna happen. That ain't gonna happen, Charlie. Whilst the windows may be full, the prices certainly are not low, cheap, or discounted. Singapore has a huge luxury goods market. Second-hand goods are readily available. A display like this would be impossible in Australia. However, just remember, the prices aren't that great. Yes, there's a lot of stuff on display. Yes, it all looks beautiful. However, if you can't make a buck on it, what does that really mean? You need to be able to make a buck. And unfortunately, that's not happening in Singapore. Singapore is a difficult place to do business. And I highly recommend the amateur not to really buy pieces here. You will get done like a dinner. You will get roasted. Absolutely roasted. But it's nice to look. It's nice to see if you're a collector and love your second-hand watches. Archie Luxury for the Archie Luxury channel. Tell me what you fuckers think of that.
We specialize here in pre-owned Rolex watches. Rolex watch is a very special timepiece, and we always do the servicing exactly as factory specifications. We buy a pre-owned piece and we put it into brand new condition. We have Rolex certified technicians working on that. We completely disassemble the piece. We adjust and polish and change every single part of the watch.
You have to have certified watchmakers that know what they're doing. If you have an expensive car, you're just not going to bring it to any mechanic that doesn't know what they're doing.
You spend $5,000, it's like if you put money in the safe deposit box. And 1 or 2 years from now, you will keep having your $5,000. We have to spend a lot of money to get all this equipment together, but makes me feel I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. It's not a question of money, it's my passion.
Jewelers on time, simply the best.